The 171st edition of the Roy's Boys podcast starts right now.
Carolina basketball family is the strongest there's ever been. There ever will be.
Nate Humphrey King likes the ball. Pushes into Hubert Davis. 8 seconds. Davis trying to get free. Over to Fox. Fox, baseline. Up for the shot. Good. Off the glass. Oklahoma calls timeout. But the game is over. The game is over. Carolina has upset number 1 Oklahoma. Been ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered by Minnie.
With 20 seconds left to play, goes back to Michael Jordan. Jumper from out on the left. Good! 63, 62, 13, 12, 11. Georgetown with one timeout. Brent Brown looking. Throw away to Worthy. 35. The Tar Heels are going to win the national championship. Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout. Technical foul. Technical foul.
Brown gets it into Williams. Here comes Williams front court. Williams on the drive. Gets it back out the head. Long outside shot. Short rebound. It's over. Carolina has won the national championship. And how about the Tar Heels? They are the national champions.
The Tar Heels are the national dadgum champions.
And that's what it takes when you big time games. You got to compete. You do it with your brain, and you got to do it with your heart too. And that's pretty doggone good.
From QCBroadcasting.com, this is the Roy's Boys podcast with your host, Josh Marlowe. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Josh and Anthony back to break down yet another Carolina win as they beat NC State yesterday, 86-76 to get their second straight win, improved to 10-5 overall and 5-3 in the ACC. But when we started off this week looking at the game against Wake Forest and then, of course, with NC State, we mentioned this was a pretty big week for Carolina. You get to 2-0, you get to 10-5, you get to 5-3 in the ACC. Things are looking up for you around your program, and that's what they did. They beat Wake Forest on Wednesday night with a great second half, and then yesterday they played maybe their most complete game to date, mainly on the offensive end for sure, to get another win. They avenged the early season loss to NC State, and all of a sudden we're sitting here, we're about almost halfway through the ACC season, and while Virginia's rounding into form and Florida State's rounding into form, Carolina's becoming a team that people are going to have to talk about moving forward in the ACC race.
Yeah, they sort of joined that group here. I mean, you win 5 out of your last 6. You've done a much better job of taking care of the basketball. You've seen, a little bit better shooting. I mean, you still have moments where the shooting has gone away from you, but for the most part, you've definitely become a better shooting team. You've got a lot of confidence from your young guys, and that was one of the big things that you had to see from this team last year. That was the biggest problem with the team a year ago, is that a lot of the young guys just never really took strides forward. And to be fair, I mean, look, Cole Anthony, your most important freshman player, he got injured, was never really able to get into a groove, ends up missing some time. So basically when he came back, was basically restarting his true freshman year. That's what's so different about this year, is that, all your guys have been out there for a while, and now you're starting to see the maturation of guys like Caleb Love, guys like RJ Davis, who are learning what will work and what will not work at the college level. These are certain things that worked in high school, they're not going to work at the college level. And those guys are finally starting to figure that out. Both guys have definitely shot the ball a lot better as of recently. And, the last 2 games, you've also seen Armando Bacot get back to the Armando Bacot that we saw early in the season, and he's starting to sort of take over inside. He's, again, showing those strides that he's made on the offensive end as well as on the defensive end as well. And that's the thing that I think is just so encouraging about this team, is that there's so many guys that, can hurt other teams in the ACC night in and night out. It doesn't feel like, okay, well, if Caleb Love, all of a sudden has a bad night, well, this team's stuck. Last year, it felt like if Garrison Brooks has a bad night, if Cole Anthony has a bad night, this team is in trouble. They're going to get blown out, whatever. This year, it is so much different where you're starting to see not only the guys that you were expecting to see step forward and have big years step up, but you're starting to see Day'Ron Sharpe become a big part of what Carolina does on the offensive end. There was, some thought that could happen, but most people didn't know what type of offensive player he would actually turn into. They just knew he brought a lot of effort, would help him on the defensive end. And then, of course, as we've talked about multiple times, and he just continues to show, he's had his ebbs and flows, but Kerwin Walton has become a part of what this team does. And that was an unknown factor going into the season. We thought, on this podcast, we thought, okay, he's probably a guy that is going to need a year or two to be able to make an impact. That's why we do the podcast. We're not around the team. We don't see them enough. So we can't really give you the greatest analysis of what they do in the offseason. But clearly that was something that they were working on with Kerwin, was getting him to be a part of this lineup. And you can see why Roy Williams thought it was so important for him to become a part of this group.
Yeah, yesterday for Carolina, a lot of things factored into the win. You score 86. That's the most they've scored all season long. They shot 54% from the field. That's their best shooting mark of the season. Despite shooting only 36% from three, they were only 4-11. They were only 8 of 18 from the foul line. But when you only turn the ball over 13 times, you can kind of find other ways to win. And yesterday, your bench played a really big part in how you won the game. You outscored State's bench 38-12. Day'Ron Sharpe off the bench, 16 points, 10 rebounds. Anthony Harris in only 11 minutes gave you 10 points. And then R.J. Davis gave you 10 points on 3 of 6 shooting to go with Caleb Love's 15. And then Armando Bacot, an efficient 17 points, 8 of 12 from the field. His last 2 games, he's scored over 30 points combined, 16-22 from the field. He's getting back to being an efficient player. And I thought yesterday that's the best Carolina's offense has looked. Definitely this season, but probably if you're going back to when Kobe White and those guys were here, because I thought their pace was there. They looked to be more comfortable with the pressure that State wants to apply. If you remember in the second half, State got out of pressing because they were getting beat and they couldn't force the turns they were wanting to force. So I think yesterday was the best clear image of Carolina's progression. We've seen it in spurts. We've seen it for halves. Yesterday was about as close to a 40-minute game as they have played all season long. And it's why the optimism is back, within us as the fans, the coaching staff. But you can tell with the players, there's confidence there. Caleb Love is more confident when he has the ball. He's not selling for contested three-point shots. He's putting the ball on the floor and getting to the hole. R.J. Davis coming off the bench seems to have settled into a role where he can score, but not having expected to score as much as a starter. And Day'Ron Sharpe just brings the energy and the effort off the bench, which Carolina needs. Be interested to see if he stays on the bench moving forward as Garrison Brooks continues to struggle. Only 4 points yesterday, actually fouled out of the contest against NC State. But I think Roy Williams likes the nucleus of guys he has to bring off the bench because his starters are still good enough to weather the storm and keep you in games, let your bench guys come in and elevate you. So, needless to say, yesterday, a really big win for Carolina despite, not shooting the 3-ball well, not shooting the free throws well. They out-rebounded State 44-30 as they continue to dominate the glass. Only 14 offensive rebounds, but they got 17 second chance points, so they were making the most of their second chances. 48-40 in the paint. I mean, no other way to say it, the best game they've played all year long.
I mean, it definitely looks like it on the surface. I mean, look, you followed your best shooting half of the year in the second half against Wake Forest with your then best shooting half of the year in the first half against NC State. So, I mean, this was the game that you felt like, Carolina was going to come out with a little bit of extra motivation after what happened in that first game. And they did exactly that. I mean, you said it. Look at the facts that they didn't shoot great from 3, but they still had their best shooting day of the entire season. That shows you how well they shot inside the arc in this game. And that's what you're looking for. Like, when you have the opportunities, are you able to take advantage of them? There have been times over the last couple of seasons where Carolina has had opportunities in plenty of games and just hasn't had good shooting nights at the rim where, their layup attempt numbers have been, frankly, awful. That did not happen in this game. You talked about, the fact that they were so efficient with second chance points. When Carolina had good looks right at the rim, they were able to finish them in this game. And that was another thing that was, I think, really crucial, especially early on, was Carolina got a lot of really high percentage looks Brooks early. They were able to drive the basket. State was not able to stop Carolina from getting to the basket early on. And that was something that the Tar Heels were able to take advantage of. It didn't feel like that was something that we had seen in a long time. Like, it was consecutive possessions where their mindset was take it to the basket as quickly as you can, because State can't stop the dribble right now. We need to be able to get there and get the points that we can get out of the gate early on. And I like that mindset. I understand that, teams have definitely done a better job of taking away the dribble drive. You've seen some times where Carolina has been able to get to the basket, but it just hasn't been consistent, meaning you've had to make shots. But when those opportunities are there, speed up the offense. Don't try to, look for another great shot by moving the ball around, everything like that. Great ball movement is fantastic, but if you can get into your half-court set and there's something there almost immediately, take it. And, we'll see what happens, going forward. And that's, I think, what, could be a focus of this Carolina team for the rest of the year is, can you sort of speed things up a little bit in your half-court offense? Because, we've seen when they've waited later and later into the shot clock, the opportunities have not been all that great. Now, you've got guys like Kerwin Walton who can help bail you out of that sometimes. But I thought this was, really – I would agree with you. Probably the best game that Carolina's played all year. And it's also a little bit shocking because if you would have told me that Garrison Brooks had 4 points in this game, fouled out, and probably had – I don't know. Is this the worst game of the season that we saw from him? He did not look good at all in this game. I probably would have told you I don't know if we're able to close this, if we're able to close this out and get a win. But Carolina did, because you've got so many other guys that can step up, and you're starting to see, that especially on the inside, what we thought we would see in the preseason, which is that you've got at least 3 guys. At times, we've seen from Walker Kessler that he can become that 4th guy, but he's had his struggles too at times. But you still have 3 guys that at any given moment, you can interchange them down the stretch, early on in games, whatever situation you want to put them in. They can handle all of those situations, and you just ride with whoever has the hot hand, and it's a great situation to be in.
Yeah, Roy Williams was adamant in the postgame after Wake Forest that they wanted to get back to playing more inside out, as they've been more premier happy the last couple of games because they were shooting the 3-ball well. And yesterday's a big reason why this team should play inside out first, because no team in the league has the size, the depth to match what Carolina has, because you can roll out at least 3 guys that can give you production, and sometimes depending on the night 4 with Walker Kessler. And that's and the fact that they won with Garrison Brooks not playing well gives this team more confidence. Their depth is really starting to round into form. The rotation is starting to get shortened, which at this time last year it wasn't. You were still trying to find lineups that worked. Right now, you kind of have an idea of what you want to play with and what you don't want to play with, and you need to have that as you're in the stretch of your ACC season. So. It felt good for Carolina to, avenge the early season loss to NC State. Caleb Love spoke on that in the postgame, saying that, look, they shouldn't have beaten us the first time. It was more we beat ourselves with our decision-making as opposed to what they did. And I think you can see that was evident yesterday, because Carolina did the things they should have done in the first game. They would have won. They did that yesterday by taking care of the ball, putting the ball inside, not settling for threes. I thought their defense was a lot better in yesterday's game as well. They didn't allow as many open 3-point shots. They defended the ball a lot better. And so it was the first time all year long we've been saying this team's progressing, and Roy Williams said this team's progressing. But yesterday you could see it for a length or an extended period of time, and they got a really big win over the rival Wolfpack. So with that, let's go ahead and move on to the Pittsburgh preview. And look, there's no rest for the weary for Carolina, because you get 2 big wins, and now you got to go on the road and play what's going to be a really ticked-off Pittsburgh team if they lost at Wake Forest yesterday, as Wake Forest got their first win in league play. Pitt's been one of the more present surprises in the league. They come in owning a record of 8-3. They've beaten Duke. They've beaten some really good teams. They're 4-2 overall in the ACC. And this is a team that last year swept Carolina. They beat them in the Smith Center, and they beat them at home in the Peterson Center as well. So Carolina's going to come in with a little bit of motivation to try to get back for those 2 losses last year with the Panthers.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough. You got to go on the road there. The good thing is that we were shocked by the fact that Virginia had fans when we were watching their game last night. So we don't. I'm not certain as to whether or not Pittsburgh will have fans or not. I think they are without fans this season, which is a big break because that's always one of the tougher places to go into and play, no matter how good they are. But you can tell that team is starting to come together under Jeff Capel. It was going to take time, but they've got some really, really good players, including a guy that probably is the player of the year in the ACC right now. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think it's even really close. I mean,